from the Weather Channel Forecast Center.
Well, welcome to the weekend once again. Unfortunately, this one for many vacationers who think this time and plan a weekend on the Jersey Shore or even down into the Outer Banks of North Carolina is one that they're just going to have to put in the bag for a while, because we've had Tropical Storm Bertha affecting this area for the last 24 hours, and it continues to move north with some very, very heavy rain, as well as some potential flooding, not only on the coastline, but also in some of the rivers. We were talking about the Saddle River in northwestern New Jersey. That is under the gun for some potential flooding as well. Let's go ahead and show you the satellite. Some good news regarding Bertha, especially if you're south of the center right now, which is approximately near Atlantic City. I'll show you the new advisory in just a moment, but notice this nice northwest flow behind the system. For some reason this thing's not exactly cooperating, this pen here, but anyway, you can see the northwest flow blowing the winds offshore. Just an absolutely gorgeous time right now on the Outer Banks and down through Myrtle Beach, but obviously the beaches have sustained some damage. We've heard reports of still power outages down at Cape Hatteras, and Rich Johnson called me earlier. His family has a cottage up the Pamlico River in Washington County, North Carolina, and they have sustained major damage up parts of the river in Washington County. So it's not only on the coast, but it's also on inland. Joining us now live from Hatteras, North Carolina, Jeff Morrow, who had I guess started this whole thing off with a vacation, Jeff. Not exactly the vacation you dreamed of, huh?
Not what I thought, Jim. You know what? I scheduled this vacation at this time of the year because I didn't really think there'd be a hurricane, but such is my luck. It came to meet me up here, at least Bertha did. Let's show you what we have here. We're out on the beach here on Hatteras Island. This is the south-facing shore, and right behind me here is where the ocean broke right through the dune line and pushed over Highway 12. We talk about Highway 12 a lot, the major artery up and down the Outer Banks here. Well, it got overwashed in a major way with about 1.5 feet of water. This is where the bulldozers that you may be able to see in the background there have been pushing sand back to try to plug the gap here, plug the hole, so that when the next high tide rolls around that we don't get any kind of overwash again. Do want to make a couple of quick points, and that is that Ocracoke Island had lost power, but they have power back now. They sustained more damage than Hatteras Island, and also Hatteras Island is open. The evacuation notice and order has been lifted, and if people have vacation plans here starting to this afternoon, they can come on down. One last thing, Jim. This is a coconut. They don't grow coconuts on Hatteras Island. This one washed up from the south. Bertha brought us a little bit of the tropics.
Any idea where that came from, Jeff?
No idea, Jim, but it is a bona fide coconut. I just have to imagine, maybe from the Bahamas. I'm not sure.
Well, maybe a little lunch for you there here on your, I guess, the rest of your vacation. Thank you very much for that live update, Jeff. We'll check back with you a little bit later on. Well, let's go ahead and take you to Elizabeth City, North Carolina, as they definitely were not having fun.
We are here on the Cape Fear River. We had a boating accident here as well. Believe it or not, Jim, this destroyer behind me did a complete 180. It was pointed northbound, now it's pointed southbound, and when that wind backed around to the west, it came right into this tiny marina, and it took 1, 2, 3, 4 boats with it. The one boat spared on the left side, but once again, that one sailboat on the right side suffering major damage.
What those boats bang into the ship there?
Yes, that, believe it or not, that destroyer is now being turned over. It's got a private ownership, and they're turning it into scrap metal, and then they're going to take it out to the ocean and sink it, and it's going to be a reef offshore. But it's still in the process of being worked on, and again, it was all moored down. Believe it or not, the moorings were about 3 inches thick of nylon, and they snapped, and they sounded like fireworks going off as they snapped one after the other. It dragged an anchor with it, but that kept it from going right on down the river.
Thank goodness for the anchor. All right, Bill, thanks for that report. We'll check back in with you just a little bit later on. Let's go ahead and give you the latest advisory on Tropical Storm Bertha as we have it from the Hurricane Center. And the good news is, obviously, we still got a tropical storm here. It is near Atlantic City, New Jersey. As I mentioned, winds are at 50 miles an hour. It is moving northeast at 24 miles an hour. Estimated pressure continues to rise at 995 millibars. Here's the latest visible satellite imagery, and you can see this thick canopy of clouds extending all the way from Maine back in through Pennsylvania and even down through the Chesapeake Bay. And of course, the center of the tropical storm somewhere in this vicinity down here. But it is the energy out ahead of that storm that continues to affect the Jersey Shore, the South Shore of Long Island, southern New England, the islands, and soon eastern Massachusetts inside the harbor. So from Brigantine on southward, the good news is we've seen our tropical storm warnings drop but northward they're still in effect. We are expecting a storm surge here at the time of high tide, or at the time of that outer band there, anywhere from 2 to 4 feet. Of course, tides will run above normal. Now, this watch has been discontinued as of 11 a.m., but we have heard word that there perhaps will be a new one issued, and if it is, it'll probably include parts of southern New England, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. We'll just have to wait and see. That is not an official word at this time. Again, the center of Bertha, right down near Atlantic City right now, and you can see these bands of rain. We've had as much as 3-4 inches of rain in southern Rhode Island already. Parts of southern Dutchess County in New York City, or in New York, have had heavy rain as well, and you can just see how these bands continue to affect the area with very, very heavy rain. Unfortunately, we still have all this rain to go for Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. That has to go on northward. The good news is this thing is moving north at a pretty good clip. Again, a closer look at the Doppler radar now out of Atlantic City, and you can see the center as it's moved on off toward the north-northeast. This one band right here, which is from central Long Island on southward, is very, very interesting. We had a gust earlier of 64 miles an hour in Ocean City, and as we take a look at the radial velocity out of New York City, you can see this core of wind. It's looking at the winds and estimating what these are as they're heading toward the radar site. So if the radar site is here, it's looking at the winds as they're heading toward the radar site. And on the scale here, we are noticing that it's in the blue zone, and you'll notice those winds toward are anywhere from 54 to 68 knots. But you go down here, and you look at this, and the max toward has been anywhere from 80 to 85 knots. Granted, that's probably over the open waters, but obviously a pretty good warning here to the boaters out there. They need to keep heed of this. But you'll notice some of this energy is moving right on the south shore of Long Island, and if this continues to move northeast, if you live in the Hamptons on the south shore, you're going to have to deal with these very, very gusty winds, perhaps 50 and as high as maybe even 60 miles an hour. Flooding, obviously, a huge problem here, not only on the coastline, but also with the rivers. We mentioned the Saddle River in northwest New Jersey is being monitored at this time, and this is a little different from our scale that you see on the Weather Channel. This right here, this light green, is anywhere from 1 to 4 inches. And then this will be 4 to 6 inches, and anything in the darkest green is going to be more than that. So we're going to see probably in the tune of 4 to 6 inches for a good wide swath, and it wasn't too long ago that southern New England endured some very, very heavy rain. So that's the latest here at the Weather Channel on Tropical Storm Bertha. We are expecting rain, wind still, mainly now the strongest winds from about the central part of the south shore of Long Island on northeastward. So Block Island, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket Island, the south shore of Massachusetts. Keep an eye on this one band as it continues to move north with potential 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. The rest of the nation's forecast for this busy weekend, let's go to Dan Atkinson in the studio.
Thanks, Jim, for that update. Meanwhile,
one of our post serials.
edition of WeatherScope. Comprehensive severe weather coverage from the Weather Channel Forecast Center.
And a good day to you. We continue to cover Tropical Storm Bertha as it makes its way up the East Coast, ruining, I'm sure, many vacation plans of hundreds of thousands of people who usually reside there for this time of the year and enjoy some rest and relaxation. That's been nothing but not the case here as we've gone on in time. Let's go ahead and show you the latest satellite picture here, and you can see what's going on with Bertha as it continues to move up the coastline. Center now moving to the north and east of Atlantic City, New Jersey, but it is under these enhanced clouds that we once again find some very, very intense rainfall. And we've had reports already in the southern parts of the Hudson Valley, also across southern parts of Rhode Island. Folks, I'm not drawing that bad, believe me, this pen is screwing up, of 3 to 4 inches of rain. And there is a band just offshore here of Long Island, which will continue to move north. And with that, we have not only rain, but also wind. Well, live with us from Highlands, New Jersey, which is just on the northwestern tip of northeastern tip of New Jersey, south of Sandy Hook, Rick Griffin. Rick, can you tell us about that sandblasting that you've been dealing with all morning? Rick, can you hear me? Can you tell me about that sandblasting you've been dealing with all morning? All right. Well, obviously, we're having troubles getting in touch with Rick. Let's go ahead and tell you about Atlantic City, or Elizabeth City, North Carolina, where we can take you and show you what it was like who was in Wilmington, North Carolina. We've got a few of you guys out there, Bill. And Billy, last time I checked with you, you were talking about the ship that had been turned around 180 degrees. But boy, amazingly enough, what a gorgeous day it is after what was just a miserable day yesterday.
That is right, Jim. It's uncanny. Be it a tornado or be it a hurricane, it seems like the day after is always just a gorgeous day. And in fact, we have that today. Yesterday, a very strong, punishing onshore flow. Today, a gentle offshore flow. A lot of activity going on. The place is abuzz right now. We are watching the salvation of a ship they're trying to salvage, if you will. They're trying to scrap the metal off of this big destroyer. What happened, Jim? This ship was pointed northbound up the Cape Fear River. Because of the northeast winds, it actually pivoted 180 degrees around. The back edge of that ship stayed in the deep water in the mud. The front end was free. It turned around. There was some anchor there, so it didn't free entirely, but it did take a battering on this poor marina right in front of me. 5 of these ships were hit pretty hard last night because of that wind that came in with a rush from the west.
Bill, what types of damage have you heard to other boats and whatnot around there?
Jim, a lot of damage to the marinas farther down the Cape Fear River. Ironically, I talked to a lot of folks that had taken their boats out of some of the marinas down near the ocean, only to bring them up this way with the feeling that maybe we're a little more secure up this way. But as you can see, that was not the case. As far as the barrier islands go, a lot of destruction out there. Very sketchy details. We've heard of a lot of damage at Curry Beach and also farther up around the point of landfall near Sneed's Ferry and on over into Topsail Island. Many of the barrier islands are still off limits to the public. And incidentally, the governor is now here, as is FEMA Director James Witt, and they are now inspecting all the damage.
And as soon as they give you some information, I'm sure you'll pass it along to us.
Right, we should know more within the hour.
Oh, great. Thank you very much, Bill, for that report. And it's not only just the barrier islands, folks. We have a report, Rich Johnson called me a little while ago, Washington Park, which is up the Pamlico River. Now, we're talking, in from the Sounds here, where there was tremendous coastal flooding, even property damage there. Piers have been wiped out, and a lot of boats as well have been damaged inland. So it's not just the coastline, it's even inland through North Carolina. Let's go ahead and show you the latest advisory on Tropical Storm Bertha. This is from the Hurricane Center at 11 a.m. And you can see it's near Atlantic City, now moving northward. Winds still 50 miles an hour in gusts. We saw Ocean City report a wind of 64 miles an hour. It is continuing to move off to the northeast at 24 miles an hour, but there's so much rain out ahead of this thing that even though it's moving at that speed, we are still going to pile up as much as 4 to 6 inches of rain. So that's not going to be good news. Again, the center right down here at the present time, and it continues to jog on off to the north and east, and you can just see the swath of clouds and moisture that this thing is dealing with. And for some reason, this pen is just about had it. Anyway, coming back with us, we have our very own Jeff Morrow, and he's going to be talking to us from Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, and that's going to be in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and show you the latest. The islands, the south shore of Massachusetts, up through the mouth of the Merrimack River a little bit later on. Again, a close-up visible satellite picture, and I don't dare draw with this thing, but what the heck, we'll give it a shot. There you go. And you can see where the tropical storm is, and on the back side of that, there we go, you can see where things are improving quite dramatically. So some great news, as we saw from Bill reporting in Wilmington, North Carolina, as well as reporting down there toward Cape Hatteras. Okay, here's the radar. You can see what's going on. Again, the south side of Cape May looking real good right now, down across the Delmarva, Dover. Just a few scattered showers left over, but still some very heavy rain continuing to move up the coast. And we talked to Rick Griffin earlier. We'll speak to him again. He's right here in Highlands, just south of the Big Apple. Jeff Morrow, a vacation that's gone array, I guess.
Well, actually, my producer, Brad Grant, said that I probably found it in the local supermarket, but that wasn't the case. No, that wasn't the case. It did wash up on shore here. I just found it a little bit ago. Jim, I wanted to show you a little bit of a contrast. You can see what kind of a day it is here today, a beautiful day. Actually, a little windy. But let's show you some scenes from yesterday, about 5:30 to about 7.
And you can see very clearly here the counterclockwise spin around our tropical storm sitting down here toward Atlantic City. And as this thing continues to move on off toward the north, it will, of course, continue to affect the folks up in New York City, Boston, and Providence as well, with some very, very heavy rain. A couple of bands now that I want to point out here. You'll notice this one south of Long Island. And please forgive this telestrator because it is just dead right now, and it's obviously making me very happy. And you'll notice up the Jersey Shore this other band here. Now, Rick Griffin is up in Highland, New Jersey, which is right up to the south of Sandy Hook, and that is where some of the, that band is going to move probably within the next couple of hours. Anyway, I can't remove that white line now, unfortunately, but we do have this heavy rain moving on up. Rick's going to deal with one more intense band, and right now on the south shore of Long Island, they continue to deal with that band as well. Rick Griffin, we tried to get a hold of you a little earlier. Give us the latest in Highlands, New Jersey, if you could.
Well, things obviously are very, very windy. The winds have been steady at 40 to 50 miles an hour for the last hour and a half or so here. Not a lot of rain. It's just a light rain, but the most noticeable thing where I'm standing is the fact that there's a lot of blowing sand in the air, and I can't look that way because if I do, I get a face full of sand. So again, a very rough morning here in the Jersey Shore region. Now, let's take a look out in the surf. And as we take a look out there, it is as rough as it has been all day. The waves continue to build, some of them probably 10 feet high. And one thing we have noticed is, as a matter of fact, a windsurfer out there on the Atlantic Ocean side. Now, there are a few over here in Sandy Hook Bay as well, but this guy out here is not obviously doing something very smart. He's down the coast a little bit, but we actually have somebody windsurfing in the very rough seas. I think Danny, my cameraman, can get the guy windsurfing down the coast. Obviously not a very smart thing to do. Back to you.
Well, looking at the winds around there, he's probably well down the coast from when you started to broadcast. What type of beach erosion have you had there, Rick?
Well, the last report I heard was about an hour and a half ago, and they were saying that there was some beach erosion, but it was relatively minor. They're still a bit concerned about it, though, because they have built up the beaches in the last year and a half after the storms earlier in the 90s, and they're just concerned about losing some sand. But right now it has been fairly minor from what I've heard.
Well, Rick, for your information, there's still another band of some very heavy showers down south of Toms River, New Jersey, which is central New Jersey southward. And probably within the next hour or two, that'll be coming north and affecting you as the center is near Atlantic City. So batten down the hatches.
We've had a few of those rain squalls this morning where the rain comes down very heavily, and winds gusts to 60 to 65 miles an hour, I would guess. So we'll be prepared as that next band comes our way.
All right, thank you very much, Rick Griffin from Highlands, New Jersey, south of Sandy Hook, sitting there in northeastern New Jersey, obviously waiting to feel what could be yet another round of Tropical Storm Bertha's wind and rain. Well, folks, again, the heavy rain continues to move up into southern New England. We are going to see as much as 4 to 6 inches of rain, probably from the Berkshires on eastward. And with that, obviously some flash flooding. They're worried about inland rivers. The Sadler River is being monitored right now, as I know, in northwestern New Jersey. That's all we have for you. Let's go to a commercial break, and we'll be back with your local forecast.
73 north, 74.7 west. However, this is a tropical system that has now become embedded within the prevailing westerlies, the upper level wind flow, and as a result, you'll notice that forward speed continues to go up, northeastbound at 24 miles per hour. That's the good side of things, and in fact, there's a chance it could even pick up additional speed. Let's hope that's the case so we can get it out of here. Pressure down about 995 millibars or up to 995 millibars considering the past history. And you'll notice sustained winds at 50 miles per hour. The big problem from this point on is the flooding and then the storm surge or the increasing water levels that will be pounding the coast of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and parts of Massachusetts. Fish canopy, but more importantly, the rainfall. And here it is on radar. You can see the spiraling nature here. That's where your center of lowest pressure is, continuing to move northeast. Due to the speed, hopefully that will cut down on some of the rainfall amounts as the system lifts out to the northeast, but we're still in it for a while for the city. Up the Hudson Valley, it's going to be very nasty. We've had reports of quite a bit of flooding in Greene, Ulster County, also in the Berkshires in western Massachusetts and northwest Connecticut. Look at the intensity of the rain. Radar estimates of anywhere from 3 to getting close to 5 inches of rain so far, and we still have a ways to go, especially here in the lower Hudson Valley, the hills of Connecticut, and into western Massachusetts. So that's going to be the big concern, the flooding that'll become our tropical storm Bertha. At top of the hour, Jim Cantori will have the latest for you regarding tropical storm Bertha. But look at the number of flood watches in effect along the track of our tropical storm this afternoon. We've had reports of 3 to 6 inches of rain in some of the parishes in northern Louisiana. It's going to be another very active day in terms of thunderstorms and the associated potential for flooding in eastern Colorado. This area being monitored for late this afternoon and tonight for the potential of severe weather. Likewise over parts of the south as that cold front worked its way into the tropical air mass. And gusty winds with our tropical storm pushing its way into New England. Let's take a look at a big radar view just to give you an idea of the extent of the rain shields with our tropical storm. Center circulation here, southern New Jersey, heading up perhaps across Long Island as we go through the afternoon hours.